Tarzan, are you sure?
Tarzan, go see Kerchak.
Kerchak?
He must be the leader. Perfect. I'll go along as an escort. After all, the jungle is a dangerous place.
Alright, so now we have our next objective, which is to go see Kerchak, the leader of the apes, in this world, and, oh my, wasn't expecting this to happen so soon, but yes, this is a mechanic I need to address. While you're traveling through the deep jungle, and before the Heartless start appearing in large numbers, there is a slight chance that you could be attacked by Sora, who has slightly less health than she did beforehand, but still gives you a nice little bounty of HP. Well worth the effort, I would say. I think it's a very interesting little mechanic, and one that wouldn't really come up in future games all that much, but the idea of having an enemy, a recurring enemy, just kind of tracking you through a world and attacking sporadically. And that trinity somehow conjured puppies into being, which is a much more benign and pleasant summoning ritual than most I've seen in other media. So, really quickly, we're going to gather some materials that are off in this direction, towards where Donald and Goofy crash-landed. And it's important, I don't think we ever come back to this plot point, but the Gummy ship did appear to crash. It wasn't just, you know, kind of knocked off course. It's total, but not, because I believe we can just teleport right back to a completely intact and perfectly maneuverable space base, right as soon as we reunite with Donald and Goofy. There's a save point in the camp I think we could use. Or in the tent, I'm sorry. Now, keep this bamboo thicket in the back of your minds as we move forward, alright? A bit later on, toward the end, or even after we finish the main story chapter for this world, there is a special character we can visit that thicket to interact with, who has the opportunity to give us some very special goodies if we complete a certain challenge. Exciting stuff. And stuff that was not present in the original Kingdom Hearts International release. Now here we reach one of my least favorite areas. Not the Hippo's Lagoon specifically, but the area it's connecting us to, the Swinging Vines. Deep Jungle, more than any other world in the original Kingdom Hearts, really emphasized platforming and kind of the degrees of mobility and maneuverability that were provided to Sora and the crew. And I think that's very interesting. It's definitely a commendable design focus. Like, we have worlds that are all about like exploration or just interaction with the world around you, and we have some like this that are all about maneuverability and kind of have this degree of verticality that some of the others don't. But I'm not sure how well it's implemented with the kind of clunky early PS2 era controls we have to work with. But I digress. We just have to move on here to get onto that last hippo's back, which will then allow us to get that treasure chest, and most importantly, hop onto that vine. Why is it so important? We'll find out just as soon as we make it to the top. Rescued more Dalmatians, meaning now we should definitely have a gift waiting for us from Pongo and Perdita the next time we visit Traverse Town. See, that vine teleports us straight into the next plot point.
Kerchak, please listen to me. I know the nesting grounds are secret, but I trust them. You see, I want to help them because, well, they need us.
Oh, did you get that?
No! Kerchak!
For some reason, none of the gorillas are voiced in this game.
Kerchak.
Despite the fact that they all had, I think, pretty high-profile voice actors in the film, and you might think they might not have been able to get all of them to return to play their roles once more, Kingdom Hearts has no issues whatsoever with using pretty convincing sound-alikes for characters they weren't able to get the original voice actors for, so I have no idea why they rendered them totally silent. Okay, so now it's time to introduce ourselves to the two things I really dislike about Deep Jungle consecutively. And keep in mind, this is a world that, on the whole, I really like. I love its design, I love its music, I love the unique Heartless we find here. But thing number one, these two pretty extensive areas we have to maneuver around by jumping onto vines. Now, maneuvering around with vines is just as simple as pressing the X button whenever you, are proximate to the vine or ledge you want to jump onto. But it was a bit more difficult in the... Oh, wow, yet more Dalmatians. I don't remember that many of them being right here. But, it was more difficult in the original release due to slightly wonkier timing, and also, I think, the fact that in place of a triangle button command or the swing or jump off command simply replacing attack in the command menu, it appearing down here every single time you either jumped onto a vine or jumped between vines. So you were having to get timing perfect and constantly cycle through the menu like so. So these areas not great, but also if you notice toward the end of that last cutscene, we mentioned that Kerchak and friends were looking towards the treehouse, meaning it's time for us to head right back to where we started, once more climbing up through the jungle canopy. This is the big problem with Deep Jungle's central story chapter. The way its objectives are structured and laid out means you will be constantly going back and forth from the treehouse to the camp over and over and over again. This world has more back and forth than almost any other in the game, and it makes me want to say more in one visit than any world in the series. Although some of that could be exaggerated by my own memory, as it takes quite some time to actually get from the treetop down to the camp and vice versa. One more Trinity for us here in this bizarre little arboreal tunnel here, which gives us another crap gummy. Which may be a literal crap gummy in light of some of this world's events. Now, if we just totally flub that jump, I suppose we have to go around once more. I think. Yeah, no, this should do it. I see no reason why we can't get up here. Is it just... That's what it is. Yeah, in Kingdom Hearts 1, definitely not in any other titles in the series, insofar as I can recall. There are some issues with, like, collision detection with edges of certain platforms. Alright, I guess we go here now. Yeah? No? It's also somewhat confusing to make your way around the deep jungle. If you've not been for some time. There we go. Treehouse. Okay. Finally. And Donald saves the day, unlikely as that is.
What's the big idea?
You know,
Wait,
this is
Kerchak,
probably the most
please.
pathetic Disney villain we'll be going up against, in the entire Kingdom Hearts canon. There's no big grandiose plan, there's no thirst for power, or the ability to remake the world in their image, or create an ideal society. No.
You don't understand.
This
I
is
was
just
only
a sad,
trying to...
upper-class
a snake
Imperial
slithering by. You
who
see,
really
I
wants to
saved that
kill
poor
some
gorilla's
majestic
life.
animals. At all costs. And you see, Clayton can't help himself. He doesn't just want to shoot, like, some gorillas. It's gotta be these gorillas, and it's gotta be, like, right now, you guys. And, yeah, there's quite a bit more story to see in this world, but suffice to say, Clayton keeps going further and further off of the deep end, simply because he really wants to shoot monkeys, like the rare, beautiful gorillas in this environment right now. We have the other villains present in the narrative, right? Jafar, who wants to overthrow a government and reign as a supreme authority on his own. And you've got Ursula, the all-powerful sea witch, who wants to improve or attain this, like, impossible beauty, right? So that she could be a perfect creature. And then you've got a sad, middle-aged man who just wants to shoot gorillas so badly, he will literally sell his soul for the privilege. Oh, and he can be easily, like, thwarted by a duck yelling at him out of nowhere. Overlord says, could you imagine hunting in the jungle and having something lined up perfectly in your sights, and then having a duck, and then suddenly a duck screams at you? Well, here's the thing. Nobody in this entire series ever seems to make note of the fact that these are giant, like, talking barnyard animals. So maybe as part of the whole non-interference clause in regards to the affairs of other worlds, there's, like, some sort of, like, fey glamour that affects Donald and Goofy that allows them to perfectly blend in. So it could have just been, like, a member of the expedition yelling at Clayton, maybe. I don't know, I'm trying to fill in numbers plot holes for him. But no, I could not imagine that at all. Well, I couldn't imagine hunting in the first place, so... Much less in an exotic locale with barnyard wildlife screaming at me.
Now, Miss Porter, as I told you, I was not aiming at the gorilla.
You are not to go near the gorillas again.
Oh, because of one mishap. Come now. Huh?
I love this shot. I especially love how Donald and Goofy are trying their best to look menacing with their constant slack-jawed, vacuous expressions.
Blasted gorillas! I'll hunt down every last one of them! I'll track them down somehow. I'll stake my life on it.
Now, the implication here may or may not be that Clayton just died. We never really get any clarification on this matter, but I am willing to believe that he did not. Regardless, it's time for us to meet some of my favorite Heartless in the game, the Power Wilds, who fill the void that soldiers will leave behind for the duration of Deep Jungle. These are extremely acrobatic and, well, as you can see, very animated creatures that are able to fight not only with jumping scratches and your standard punches, but also with a pretty devastating slide kick. They are just loads of fun to mess about with. And they're not alone in Deep Jungle. No. We've got one other type of world-specific Heartless that I think are just phenomenally well-designed. And hopefully we'll run into some of those before we have to leave. They're quite rare. For the most part, it'll just be the Power Wilds. I love the fact that, like, as they get ready for attacks, they start dancing around and, like, cranking, stretching their arms around in their sockets and, like, warming up. It's adorable. And it's not very well explained at first, but what we have to do is go visit several locales around the Deep Jungle now in order to save gorillas in exchange for yet more gummy pieces by defeating the Power Wilds.
Deep freeze!
Oh wow, and Donald is already down for the count. Even for him, that's pretty weak. But our Lord and Savior, the X button, comes through for us once again, as we receive yet another, like, useless mid-range gummy from one of our gorilla friends. We should have, I think, one more to rescue, and guess what? It's not in camp or the Hippo's Lagoon or anywhere like that. It's back at the treehouse again. Why? Because they need to pad this world out somehow, and by God, they're gonna do it. By making you go back to the treehouse until the end of time. And this will not be our last trip, either. Oh, that's one of the Power Wild's distaff counterparts. I believe they call them the Bouncy Wilds. These extremely agile simian snipers will drop banana peels, which cause you to scatter money about if you should come into contact with them, and will take pot shots at you with a slingshot from afar. All in all, they're not very dangerous at all, just somewhat of a pain, as they can make you spill some of the hard-earned money that you have beaten out of other Heartless. And I mean, you know how badly we need money, right? Like, just all the time, we're burning through it. Can't keep enough of it in stock, really. So I'm not sure if the Power Wilds are actually more or less of a threat than the soldiers. I know they certainly hit a bit harder, but their attacks just seem to go careening off over the party's heads or straight past the party more often than not. Now, I was so excited to see in some Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer footage that after a very long absence, Power Wilds will actually be returning to that game. Usually, I'm a bigger proponent of, like, throwing all of a game's, or most of a game's enemy designs out with the bathwater and just starting fresh with some cool new designs with every iteration. But with Kingdom Hearts, at least, there are some iconic enemies that I think it's perfectly fine to include in every installment. And while they're not iconic whatsoever, I was so glad to see that they were bringing Power Wilds back, probably just for one world or something, but... Oh, it hit that nostalgia center of my brain just perfectly. So now that the Heartless are going to be a consistent presence here in the Deep Jungle, it's less likely that we'll run into Sabor on a regular basis. In fact, we should only run into her once more during our entire time here in the jungle. Stuck the landing, of course. By the by, to anybody watching this either on stream or on VOD over at YouTube, please let me know at any point if you have any suggestions, criticism, commentary on my style of presentation or streaming, like the technical aspects or the more like personal aspects of my presentation. And let me know what you think I could do or should do to improve. As I said, I'm brand new at this, so I would hopefully be able to learn and improve myself as time goes on, and I was not expecting that. So one thing I could do, for instance, is not send myself careening to a forest floor a few hundred feet below myself, but we will hopefully improve in that regard this time. But no, please, seriously, do let me know through any format. Just get in touch, drop a comment, something like that. Let me know how you think I'm doing, any suggestions you would have for improvements in the future. I hope to become a fairly competent streamer in the coming months, even though I'll be probably pretty irregular and more than a little awkward for these first few weeks. Hopefully we can smooth things out. With your help and continued patronage, of course. So there might be a gorilla here we have to rescue as well. I don't recall, but if this many power wilds spawn just as soon as we zone into an area, that typically means that we need to rescue a gorilla, and yes, we do. So now there's one last gorilla to save, and that will be the one at the treehouse. Whoops, wrong way. Again. Hope you like these canopy textures, because we're going to be seeing an awful lot of them. Yeah, now here, for the Treehouse Battle, the Power Wilds are actually waiting for us inside the structure proper. They're learning. Well, thank you very much, Overlord. I appreciate that. Hopefully I can develop a more naturalistic style of discussion as we carry on. But I am very glad to hear that I'm at the very least being engaging and somewhat informative. We got a level up there, a bit more HP, which is going to be very useful for what's in store. Deep Jungle is the only one of the, first little set of worlds, Traverse Town, Wonderland, Deep Jungle, of course, and that fourth world, with a battle level of 2, that has, like, a really challenging boss, or a boss that can give you at least some pause. I was gonna see if we could go ahead and jump up there. I know there's a way to do it, but I'll just come back later for like a discussion or wrap-up stream to pick up the treasures that can be accessed in the upper levels of the treehouse once we have some better navigational abilities. That's something I do appreciate about Kingdom Hearts' general character progression ethos. That being that you can constantly gain new traversal and acrobatic abilities in almost every entry in the series, allowing for a great deal of return to previously explored environments to find additional treasure, cool little secret items, or sometimes very powerful items, things like that. There's a lot of incentive to go back behind yourself and sort of clean up things you may have missed or been unable to access before. And I do appreciate that in my action RPGs.
Come on!
Alright, so now I think we go back to the tent one more time, which will then send us on one last odyssey to the treetops before we can actually carry on with the final boss battle of the Deep Jungle storyline. Which, just going by my clock here, isn't actually taking as long as I remember it normally so doing. Okay, Mr. Clayton, so we've got to go, That's all we had to do. Great. Okay, so now we're going to head over to the bamboo thicket to, check on Clayton. Only to find Sabor, who is present for her final boss fight. This is the closest thing to a legitimate, boss battle you'll hit with Sabor. She has more health here, does just a bit more damage, and breaks out this little gimmick, where she will dive into the bamboo stalks and reappear from elsewhere in the arena. Now, the only problem with this is, so long as you have a constant lock on her, you will, follow her through the reeds. As I said, there's no real strategy I can offer you here, save stay to her side.
Come on!
Blocking her attacks doesn't do much in the way of staggering her, but she deals so little damage it's kind of a non-entity. And now, our all-loving child hero has just slain an endangered species. Lovely. But we did get the White Fang for our troubles, a rare accessory that will be pretty useful. So, that makes it worth it, I suppose. And we have found out that the Heartless, in maybe the 75 seconds we've been gone, have been completely trashing the camp. So it's time to head back there and see if we can't arrive in time to save these poor innocent civilians. After completely failing to do so, both in the Destiny Islands and Wonderland, because we are really good at the whole heroism thing.
See ya!
Blizzard is just perfect for annihilating small, weak groups of Heartless. Like Shadows, Red Nocturnes, just pop off a cast of Blizzard and you are in shape. The Balancing Wilds actually can be something of a threat if you don't keep a bead on them, and that's why.
Deep freeze! Come on!
Now, of course, turnabout's fair play, because while they attempt to shake your money loose, they also drop a fairly significant portion of it themselves if they're vanquished. So we'll just head right back on over to the camp and prepare for our final odyssey into the treetops. Thank God. And the issue I have with Deep Jungle isn't so much that there's backtracking, but that so much of it is just incredibly direct and not really justified in terms of the plot. It's just back and forth, take part in events that could have just as easily happened down here on the jungle floor. Now, when one of your party members slips on a Bouncy Wilds banana peel, I don't know if they also lose your money. Money definitely flies out of them, but I'm not sure if that's actually taken from the party's coffers or not. It'd be somewhat unfortunate if it was. So something to appreciate about Power Wilds is despite being kind of easy to deal with and not packing too much HP, they drop, or rather they are worth 4 experience points, which is not inconsiderable at this stage in the game.
See ya! See ya!
Oh, for God's sake.
Fire!
Yeah, these things can be a real pain. Though it looks like we got it, I think? Okay, great job, Dynamic Duo. Before we head off to these pretty significant battles up ahead, I want to just swap out our accessories really quickly. Ifrit's Horn gives us a mild fire resistance, and raises AP slightly and defense about as much as the Protect Chain does. But the White Fang raises strength, defense, and AP. We're not going to be fighting a lot of flame elemental enemies, or enemies that deal a great amount of fire damage anytime soon, so I think we would be fine to just go ahead and wait on equipping Ifrit's Horn to Sora. Now Goofy, on the other hand, may want to go ahead and equip this. Well, hold on. Yeah, I'll go ahead and give it and the spare Protect Chain to Goofy for what it's worth. And very soon we should be unlocking a certain ability for Sora that's going to be very useful for me moving forward in terms of actually commenting on what's going on during battles, and that is the Scan ability. Yes, in the first Kingdom Hearts you actually have to unlock the ability to see how much health your enemies have. Because gameplay and character progression, I suppose. I think I mentioned it on yesterday's stream, but that's a common complaint against the series' overall design aesthetic that I definitely do agree with. The idea that you don't only unlock like cool variations on your character's standard suite of maneuvers, but that you also have to unlock a great deal of those maneuvers in the first place through progression. I'm talking about things like blocking, dodging, seeing how much health the enemy has. That should not be, in my humble opinion, something you have to progress a fair amount of the game without, especially if a lot of the game's combat is balanced around or predicated on the player having access to those maneuvers and techniques. So here we were told out of, like apropos of nothing, that the big black fruit looks suspicious. The fruit in question being this kind of eggplant-looking thing. Now the power wilds are going to keep spawning in without end.
Come on!
So what we have to do, and unfortunately it's going to be rather tricky since we can't really lock onto it, is just destroy the fruit to somehow destroy the wall of vines that are holding Jane and Turk hostage. This is not a difficult event battle whatsoever, and nor is it a particularly lengthy one. That's it, and we are practically set to go off and fight the final boss of the Deep Jungle story chapter. 3 guesses as to who it is. Alright, so now we're off to rescue the gorillas once and for all. But first, we'll stop here to pick up just a bit more experience. Now, it's also worth keeping the treehouse itself in mind. Oh, we actually learned how to block. How do you like that? No, Overlord, the boss is not Smile Dog, thankfully. That would be lovely. It would be about... Well, no, I was going to say it's about as creative as what they go for, but they actually do make this upcoming boss fight just a little bit surprising. Oh dear. It looks like we're going to need 1 more AP in order to block, because that requires 2 ability points. So we'll just unequip Berserk instead, allowing us now to press the square button to block or reflect most attacks, or deflect.
Come on!
And of course, pressing the square button while in motion will still allow us to perform our dodge roll, meaning we now have access to our full suite of basic maneuvers at like level 13 or 14, somewhere in there. Level 15, close enough. Oh yes, and not to spoil it for the VOD crew, but Overlord just mentioned the actual boss fight and said it's a rather nice fight. I agree, it's really well done, and when I first played the game as a small child, maybe I was 5 years old when I first got it, it was the first fight that gave me any real difficulty. It doesn't so much anymore, but mechanically it's just really interesting for this type of game. We've had some pretty cool boss mechanics thus far, like the guard armor kind of creating a crowd control situation wherein you have to like constantly divide your attention between these 5 autonomous entities, or the trick master requiring you to stun him to do any real damage. But the boss fight that's coming up requires management of a more active dynamic. And it's the first fight where you'll really have to put your dodging skills to the test. Because we will be under attack more or less incessantly. We won't have any moments like the Trick Master fight, where the boss was just kind of ambling about aimlessly. Well, we shouldn't, at least. It's also worth noting for the next boss fight, just so you guys know, if I recall correctly, the whole reason the Keyblade is the principal weapon in this game is because, well, Disney didn't want any of their characters, because it was originally thought a Disney character, like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck, would be the protagonist, to use realistic or like kind of nasty looking weaponry. Of course, just not the kind of thing Disney wants to put their name on, right? Well, we'll see how well that holds up in the next boss fight, which may or may not involve a grown man emptying a shotgun into the face of a like teenage child.
See ya!
Okay. We've got just a few more Heartless to clear out, and then it is time to move on to the boss battle, which will be in that as-of-yet unused cliff face on the other side of this area. Yes, Overlord, it is a bizarre boss fight to experience. If only for the fact that,
Come on!
You're kind of fighting a totally realistic villain alongside this ridiculous cartoonish crew of abominations. So to defeat the Simians, Clayton has created his own army of, like, demon apes.
No!
Proving he is the worst hunter and is easily distracted by anybody making noise in his
Clayton.
vicinity.
Not Clayton. Not Clayton.
So this is what I meant by... Hold on just a second. This is what I meant by, it's implied that Clayton may have been killed by Sabor. So there's this concept in the Kingdom Hearts universe, that someone who is sufficiently malevolent or aligned with not necessarily even the moral principles, but the metaphysical energies of the Dark Realms can, after their death, remanifest as a sentient Heartless, basically a ghost. And there is a possible implication that that's exactly what happened with Clayton, and since he has been reformed as a Heartless, that he is in some way, shape, or form able to control these lesser Heartless, the emblem Heartless in the area. But that said, it's entirely inconsequential because he is controlling them, and that said, welcome to the Clayton/Power Wilds boss fight, one half of the final bosses for Deep Jungle. This fight is extremely straightforward because Clayton is a middle-aged man with an antiquated shotgun, and his only real technique is to simply shoot you in the face. Again, Disney didn't want their characters associated with using swords or anything like that, but having one of their more villainous characters straight up shoot a child in the face with buckshot? That's okay. So, Clayton will be using his shotgun pretty much incessantly throughout this fight. Does a fair amount of damage, but if you stay up on him, he'll never get the chance to really use it effectively. And he can heal himself with a potion analog, sporadically, so just something to keep an eye on. I would just ignore the Power Wilds out entirely and focus on Clayton, who can get some serious air, my god.
Deep freeze!
Can't run from anime justice. And just like that, a few combos in, and the fight is over. But Clayton calls in the heavy cavalry and assumes a ridiculous pose. And when I was a child playing this game for the first time, this was the moment that sold me on the game and the series. Clayton, on his last legs, summons a massive invisible siege monster to just waylay the party directly without the assistance of his lesser Heartless. So, welcome to the actual boss fight of Deep Jungle, Clayton and the Stealth Sneak. The Stealth Sneak is the large, invisible creature he has just hopped up on the back of, and is essentially a bizarre, heartless chameleon. Now, this fight unfolds in three pretty distinct phases. In the first phase, the Stealth Sneak is totally invisible, but can still be locked onto, so it's kind of inconsequential. Once you wear it down sufficiently, though, it will become totally visible, and will adopt a slightly altered attack pattern. Wear it down just a bit more, and Clayton will hop off of the beast's shoulders or be thrown off, and you can actually damage him once again or finish wearing down the stealth sneak. It's your prerogative. Clayton maintains the same exact moveset as before, except now he'll be sniping us from the shoulders of his stealth sneak, and the stealth sneak, for its part, has your basic claw and tail whip attacks, but also a couple of very damaging beam attacks, which it will unleash in the form of basically a Pokemon-style Razor Leaf with its claws, or a homing beam from its eyes that it will fire off a short salvo of 3 to 4 blasts in succession. Not much I could say in the way of strategy on this one, save stay to the rear or sides of the stealth sneak, as you would with any large enemy, and you can wear it down with ease. Now, this battle will end as soon as Clayton's health is drained, but we're going to prioritize eliminating the sneak first for just an extra bit of sweet EXP, if there's any to be gained from this fight.
Come on!
Now, I do love the visual effects that appear whenever we strike the stealth sneak. And as you see, the stealth sneak, originally just like a standard green camouflage color, has been outfitted with tribal tattoos for the VI-IX remake for some strange reason.
Deep freeze!
That was one of its beam attacks, which we were able to just roll out of the way of. And Clayton's already off. And we were able to stun the stealth snake. That practically never happens, or... I thought for a second I may have actually killed it, but no. Okay, here comes the I-beam. Want to be really careful here and dodge these. Trust me, later in the game, boy oh boy, if you do all the side content, will you become a pro at dodging I-beams. As you see, if you get close enough due to the outward arc of those beams, they can't really do much to you.
Come on!
Let's go!
There we go. Stealth sneak is down. Or no, it's just stunned again. So, oh, maybe they changed this for VI-IX. Maybe we have to target Clayton instead. Okay. At least in the original release, you could just wear down the stealth sneak and eliminate him from the battle entirely. Nope, that's the stealth snake done. I will not lose to a middle-aged man with a shotgun. I don't care if I have to heal. There we go. Still a poor performance on my part. I do apologize for that. This should be a little bit more, well, showy, but I'm afraid I've still got a lot to learn about these games, guys. But with that, Clayton is vanquished, and we have technically cleared the Deep Jungle story chapter, even though there's a bit more we'll have to take care of here. And credit to him, he's still got plenty of fighting spirit, but unfortunately his Siege Chameleon does not. A bit less dramatic than his death in the film, just a smidge. And there we go. That's the reason why you come to Deep Jungle, kids. You get your mandatory healing spell, which will be pretty useful, not necessarily for most combats, but for certain trickier boss fights. Having the ability to heal at your leisure, and especially not need to expend any curatives, is a real boon, especially at this stage of the game. And Kerchak rewards us by killing us. That would have straight up killed Sora. This is probably one of the less hospitable worlds we'll be visiting in this game. And that's the last we'll see of our animal friends.
Tarzan home.
Okay, so after a pretty fantastic boss battle, probably my favorite in the game thus far, we are still not quite done here, as we have to head into the waterfall cavern. Now, it was touched on very lightly, but remember, a huge part of what we have to do in each world is seal the keyholes so that no large-scale Heartless incursions can assail them. So what we have to do now is find the keyhole of Deep Jungle, which is conveniently right here. And, oh yeah, our friends, I guess. Sure, that's more important. No, you know, friends, kind of. It's better explained, or rather articulated in later games, but I get the feeling from the way this one's presented that Sora and Riku weren't friends at all, so much as kind of bitter childhood rivals. Oh, and there we got a chunk of orichalcum ore, extremely rare synthesis items that will be essential in crafting some of the best gear in the game later on. So there's just a few treasure chests around here. I want to make sure I've got them all, so we don't have to come back here later. Including another set of Dalmatians, which would make, what, 4 or 5 we've gotten from Deep Jungle? Quite a few, at any rate. Meaning we will definitely need to stop by the Dalmatians mansion the next time we stop by Traverse Town, not only to see the adorable little puppies we have rescued from eternity in the Kingdom Hearts equivalent of Pokeballs, but also to, receive a gift or two from their eternally grateful parents. Wait, oh, sorry guys, I typically am a bit smoother at this. Never believed the stories of the Let's Play curse until, well, just now, but it's true, guys. Has less to do with playing a game with an audience and more to do with having to articulate thoughts as best you are able, and strategize on the fly. But I digress. We are here, at the Deep Jungle Keyhole, which is just a beautifully designed little environment and scene. I'll actually sit back and be silent for this one.
But that means... Huh?
Ooh. Oh.
The waterfalls. They're echoing all the way here.
Friends there. Sea friends.
Oh, now I've got it. Means heart. Friends in our hearts.
Heart.
Just quick interjection.
Oh,
Translation.
That's what it meant.
Our entire
Friends.
time here
Same
was, once again,
Clayton.
worthless.
Lose heart. No heart.
I mean, I guess
No
we
sea friends.
vanquished an Imperial
No
era
heart.
evil hunter who sold his
friends.
soul to be able to shoot monkeys, but
Sorry about what
that's
I said.
about it.
I'm sorry too.
Yeah, all for one, huh?
I'm coming.
But it's sure not the king's.
I think someone has a new admirer.
We'll just,
Kill me.
wow, Square Enix seems to have made a real cottage industry out of ending cutscenes in ways that just kind of leave me speechless as a commentator. Like, what am I supposed to say about that? What do I say?
What drew the Heartless to that world? The hunter lured them there. It was his lust for power that was the bait. But it seems the bait was too tasty for his own
He didn't want
good.
power, he wanted pelts. But, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah, he got chopped instead.
A weak-hearted fool like him stood no chance against the Heartless. But the boy is a problem. He found one of the keyholes.
Fear not. It will take him ages to find the rest. Besides, he remains blissfully unaware of our other plan.
Yes, the princesses.
They are falling into our hands, one by one. Speaking of which...
So beyond the revelation that Alice is a princess, or some such, we were able to get a bit more of a bead on the villain's machinations right there in that little cutscene. I stayed silent during that one, less to let the plot explain itself as best as it's able, and more to give you another glimpse into the wonderful cast of voice actors that Square Enix were able to recruit for this project, including Miss Pat Carroll, the original voice actor for Ursula, and the fantastic Mr. Ken Page, who has voiced Oogie Boogie in pretty much everything that character has ever appeared in, and just has that beautiful, rich baritone. I adore his voice, and his performance alone makes Oogie Boogie's relevant world one of my favorites in any game it appears in. So, we are back in the gummy ship. No, not back to Traverse Town. No, we'll go back to Traverse Town, guys, after we clear up the final world in this first little circuit of 4. And that's the last we will ever hear of the infighting subplot. Really? Oh wait, we can't actually access the main menu from the overworld map in this game. I totally forgot. But we will access the main menu just as soon as we touch down in this next world, the final world on our circuit, and one of my favorites in Kingdom Hearts 1 at the very least, because it serves a very special function. Now, as I've said many times, probably too many times for this early on in the LP, I'm not a huge fan of the Gummy Ship sub-game, but there's another little sub-game or array of challenges offered in the next world that I am much more amenable to. Because instead of just taking you out of the game and immersing you in the world of kind of crappy 90s CG, the mini-games offered in the next world expand upon and kind of build upon the core gameplay mechanics in a way that's really interesting and at times challenging. So we'll be spending a lot of time in this next one over the course of the LP, or stream rather, is what I mean. As you can see, our initial laser is very weak. The only significant modification I may make to the space base throughout the course of the playthrough is the attachment of a couple extra guns, just slapped kind of haphazardly about the side of the hull. Oh, I missed this comment. After the Clayton fight, Overlord said, instead of being literally hung by vines, he's just crushed by a lizard. Yeah, that's one of the interesting things was, for a while there, especially for the standard tone they had set during the original Renaissance, Disney had this thing about giving its villains some fairly graphic and macabre deaths in the early 90s, and Clayton's was certainly one of the more dramatic and I would say well-executed death scenes they produced in that time. And yeah, replacing that with him kind of getting crushed under the weight of a Jim Henson Workshop reject is not quite as powerful to the viewer, shall we say, but it is kind of funny. And So while we've seen the last of Clayton, we have not seen the last of the Stealth Sneak, which will make a couple more appearances in optional battles down the line. No battle with the Sneak should be as challenging as that one was. Obviously, we'll be much stronger the next time we see one. But one mechanic for that fight I did not bring up is during its warm-up and cooldown for the kind of resplendent I-beam attack that it shot off 3 or 4 times over the course of the fight, the Stealth Sneak cannot be killed. It can take damage, but you cannot finish it off while for the duration of that attack. Yes, Overlord, I was about to bring up that death scene, actually, on our previous line of discussion. Judge Frollo, in the original text, I believe it was Cardinal Frollo, or at the least Bishop Frollo, was cast off into hell at the conclusion of Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is my absolute favorite Disney film, and one that doesn't get near enough love these days. But yeah, a lot of really gruesome death scenes in Disney stuff back then. Well, what am I talking about? Like, fairly recent Disney material has kind of kept that same theme. I believe Dr. Facilier in The Princess and the Frog, who literally was dragged into hell by Rogue Loa. At any rate, it's time to talk about our new destination, the Olympus Coliseum, obviously taken from Disney's Hercules, a film I also adored in my childhood, and probably the smallest world in the entire game. No, easily the smallest world in the entire game. This right here, the Coliseum Gates, this and one small little antechamber, the vestibule, which we're about to enter, comprise the entirety of this world. So, not a lot to explore here. As you can see, there's a few Trinity marks about. There's these braziers, which we can attempt to extinguish, but we will be told that Blizzard can't affect this, so we might have to come back with something a bit stronger down the line. And that's it. We have seen basically the entire Olympus Coliseum, save the real reason why you come to this world. You don't come here for the story, because there isn't very much of one. You don't come here for the exploration, because there is none. There's only one reason you ever go to a Coliseum in a video game, and it is the reason why I adore Coliseums in video games. It's time for an arena tournament. Oh yes. Oh yes. So we get things started here by talking to Philocities.
Good timing. Give me a hand, will you? Move that pedestal over there for me. I gotta spruce this place up for the games.
So we did not get Danny DeVito back to reprise his role, unfortunately, but we did get a fantastic delivery of the phrase, "the games," which became something of a meme amongst Kingdom Hearts fans. At a certain point in, like, the evolution of the fandom, I think, and rightly so. That is precious delivery, up there with "what's happening, man," in my mind. So we tried to move this pedestal that Phil directed us to, but we can't really seem to do much of anything with it. As you can see, there's a yellow trinity here, and so we'll probably need to return once we are able to interact with those in order to properly exploit this, like, little area. But before we resume the main plot line of this world, I wanted to check out a couple of things in our menu, including something I totally glossed over that we acquired in, like, the deluge of loot we received after sealing Deep Jungle, and that is our second keychain, our first ever alternate keychain, and the keychain that is associated with the Deep Jungle, the beautiful-looking Jungle King. As you can see there, it's a bit stronger, doesn't deal critical hits, hardly ever, I don't believe, but something else that's important to note about this Keyblade, and several Keyblades we'll be acquiring in the near future, is that it has a much greater reach than the Kingdom Key, enabling us to connect with enemies a little bit easier and at less risk to Sora. just aesthetically, before we equip it, I want to point out how much I adore the design of the Jungle King as kind of this very natural-looking bone and like leather construction, with a very simple cord and a keychain ornament of one of those butterflies that was guarding the deep jungle keyhole. Very beautiful, captures the aesthetic of the base material